Welcome to Radio Omnicor. It's Colleen here. We're at episode 42. And in this episode, we get to hang out with Yusuf Muller, who is our colleague from Omnicor, who's now traveling around the world and currently working at Amazon. He shares all his adventures, all his new ideas that he's learned, and also time to just reminisce and what we used to get up to at Omnicor. It's going to be a nostalgic episode. For those of you who know him, you'll enjoy it. For those of you who don't, you'll find it fascinating and fun. So let's jump straight in. Welcome to this amazing episode. Yusuf, it's so exciting to see you in the podcast today. Hi, Hilton. You're in your usual seat.
Hi, it's great to be chatting to Yusuf. He's been a friend for many years, and at one time he was my boss. And it's so great to have him share his wisdom with us today.
So, Yusuf, I think we all obviously know you well and the impact that you've had at Omnicor being the architect of RollFit, our wonderful assessment system. But maybe just bring everyone else up to date who hasn't yet had the pleasure to meet you, what you're busy with, and what you've been doing since we last saw you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here and to actually be on this side of the table um, and this side of the microphone. So, for the last couple of years, of course, for those who don't know me, I was at Omnicor for, I think, working with Omnicor as a business from 2001 through to about 2019. Um, that's a long time, full time for the last 9 years of those. Or, yeah, something like that. I'm currently in Luxembourg, which when I first got this job, I had to Google where Luxembourg was because, I mean, no one knows. It's actually not part of Germany, but it's an interesting place. It's freezing cold and still raining, and I'm waiting for summer, but more on that later. I spent the previous 2 years in the Middle East with 45-degree temperatures, working for a German based company on a food delivery platform. But I think the challenge at the moment is massive. I'm at Amazon now, which I'm glad to be a part of, and the scale of this place and the speed of development and everything is just it's insane. It really is. So in terms of development, I'm enjoying this part right now. I got a team of people from literally around the world. I think every continent: South America, North America, Europe, Asia, um, everywhere, and most people based here in Luxembourg. So yeah, that's where I am right now. But Omnico still runs in my veins.
That's amazing. How many people do you work with in your team? And it's quite exciting to hear more about, what it's like to work at Amazon, because we sometimes imagine that and talk about it. It must be an incredible opportunity.
It is definitely. It's there's a whole philosophy on how they do things. Everything is very specific. Meetings are run in a very peculiar way, and the word peculiar is actually um, used at Amazon daily, everywhere. There's the peculiar Amazon way. Um, I think the teams are fixed at a maximum size. So there's a rule that if two American pizzas cannot feed your team's too big. So you run your team, and it's around 10 or 12 people. At the moment, I got about 12 people in my team. And if I grow any more, I'm going to have to divide it into two teams. So, which will probably happen in another few months. And that's one of the ways. But because of the size of the teams, we probably have about 10,000 teams across the world, running about 30,000 services and all microservices to, every element on an Amazon web page is a different team, essentially. And the scale of traffic that goes through this place is any software engineer's dream to work on. And yeah, so that's very exciting. And just I'm calibrating myself to the way Amazon does things and have to try to make sure that I keep in touch with getting the times right of meeting people in Seattle, which is 8 hours on the other side, and then meeting people in India at the same time, which is 4.5 hours the other way. So getting people in the same room at the same time is just a nightmare sometimes. But that's yeah, it's fun with these global-based companies.
So, Yusuf, I mean, are you free to like share some of the working ideas at Amazon with us? Is it? I mean, is it secretive or is it okay?
Yeah, I think some of it is was quite unexpected to me as well. We all have used Amazon, we've used the mobile apps, and we've used the website, but some of the challenges that are faced are quite interesting. So I'm working for an organization that does international expansions in Europe. International technology really works around the world, but I'm focused on European expansion. So we just launched Poland recently, Amazon.pl. We've launched Turkey as well, also recently, but previously was Netherlands and Sweden and all of these different marketplaces. The challenges faced with all of these different marketplaces are country specific regulatory fees and taxes. And when we have to deal with exports, there's a lot of financial implications. It's a retail website, it's an e commerce website at the end of the day, an e commerce business. So exports and taxes and regulations and these kind of fill my day, and making sure that we compliant is a big part. So my specific team, we work a lot on compliance projects at the moment with Germany and Sweden. So there's a couple of specific rules that we have to take care of. So if you buy a product that incurs certain tax, we have to make sure to collect the tax and all of those sorts of things.
So
But
it's
at the end of the
Amazon Web
day,
Services, right? That's what you're. That's the part
no.
of
So
Amazon,
no,
or is
AWS is infrastructure business. No, I'm
mm,
working for the e-commerce side, so
right. So it's
worldwide
the
consumer. Yeah,
okay, okay. Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
yeah, and we do have AWS teams here in Luxembourg as well. Luxembourg is European headquarters. We have about 3,500 people by the end of this year in Luxembourg, but we probably have about 1.2 million people around the world employed at Amazon. It's like a small country. Uh, it's really massive.
So obviously, it brings home the idea of really remote working because you're working with people, different countries, and everything. I mean, long before COVID, it sounds like that was a completely routine model for Amazon. I mean, besides the challenges of time differences, how difficult is it to work with people when you're never in the same room at one time for the duration of your career, maybe?
I think it got to the point where we don't even notice it anymore. But yes, video conferencing has really been something important with a business like this. There's teams with the amount of people you're dealing with, multiple offices in San Diego and Seattle and New York, and Brazil has a big tech hub as well. So it's always been online. Um, and you there's a process to every meeting where, in the Amazon peculiar way, whoever's running the meeting would actually write up a 2 or 3 pager. So the writing culture at Amazon is massive. You would write it up and you would then submit it to everyone. The first, say, 20 minutes of an hour meeting is everyone sits and reads. They read the document and they all sit silently and read. When everyone's done reading, you make comments in the document and then you can review the document as the rest of the meeting. But all the ideas and the challenges and open questions are presented in the document. And in that sense, you could be anywhere around the world. You all have the same content that you're going through. Um, and that, I think, it's, I don't want to use a cliche, but it is a fine art that they have it. This is the way things work now.
But Yusuf, where do they send the pizza?
I still haven't found good pizza. I'm dying. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this American-sized pizza. Luxembourg. I don't know if anyone is in Luxembourg listening to this podcast, but you need to get in touch with me and get me the right pizza. We need proper pizza. I was on a call with. You remember Abby from Rambu on the Nando's project?
Yes,
I
sure.
was on a call about that, helping them with something, and begging them to please open up a Nando's here in Luxembourg. South African takeaway is
Mm,
unbeatable,
mm,
so that's something we
mm,
definitely have a gap for. So
mm,
thank you, Colleen. I'll be looking for pizza as takeaway tonight.
mm.
I'm interested to know, Yusuf, when you went through the whole recruitment process, did they use psychometric assessments? Was there anything peculiar about the way they recruited you?
They didn't use psychometric assessments, but they have quite a defined way of doing interviews. It's a 5 hour, 5 panel interview. After you get through phone screens and a few of the prerequisite steps, um, you actually have one interview after the next. Amazon is based on leadership principles. So there's these 14 leadership principles: think big, deep dive, take ownership, disagree, and commit, which is something I urge everyone to actually read about. Amazon's leadership principles. It's widely available. Everything in the business is based on leadership principles, down to performance management, hiring, everything just revolves around these 14 leadership principles. So the panel of interviews, I think each panelist, each interviewer takes three of these leadership principles and interrogates that with the candidate. And there's also some technical components to it. For my role, for example, I'm a software development manager, or if you're a software engineer, you also have those sorts of technical questions. But you go through this loop of 5 interviews, 3 interviews, and then a lunch break and 2 interviews. But you go through this loop of a very intensive day, and normally it's on site. So normally it's a thing where you get invited, you come for the day, and there's a whole process where we invite you in, and it's on site. But at the moment we can't do that, so everything's online. So mine was online, but mine was also based on time zones. It happened at like 10 p.m. It happened from like 9 p.m. to midnight the one day, and then the other two on the next day. Have to work through time zones. But it is a specific way of doing things related to these leadership principles. I think there's a few things that overlap with Omnicor's way of doing it, um, down to rating and down to um, even the feedback loops, all of that. But no direct psychometrics, which we'll get it right. We'll get it in. We'll get roll fit into Amazon at some point.
That would be amazing.
I mean, I suppose related to that is the idea of how they distill that information and decide whether you're going to be a good hire or not. And I suppose the question, which maybe you can't answer, is when you look at the quality of your colleagues and the people you work with, does that interview process seem to really filter out getting the top people in the business?
I think so, yes. I think it is very stringent. The part of that interview is also what we call a bar raiser interview. So we try and make sure that any candidates coming into Amazon is raising the bar for the caliber of candidates that we hire. So someone has to be at the right level, has to be better than, or at least not not coming in at the lowest rung compared to other Amazonians. So yeah, they do have that, and then the process around it is after the loop, all the interviewers will get into a room, and there'll be a debrief, and they'll go through it and debate um, the performance and the results of this particular candidate. Yeah.
So Yusuf, one of the things I'm interested in organizations is their receptiveness to critique and challenge and proactivity. I mean, how much freedom is there for you, or how much bureaucracy would be in the way if you had a great idea in the middle of the night and you looked at some of the existing ways of doing things and said, there's a much better way, and I'm going to present it and whatever. Would what's the culture of getting new things done through innovation, etc., like that?
I think it's really valued, and there really is a place for it. We have multiple forums for innovation continuously, and multiple opportunities to present your ideas. I actually presented an idea 2 weeks ago and presented it at an innovations forum, and we're seeing whether there's some merit to it and whether we can actually take that forward. Some of the leadership principles are like one of them is invent and simplify. And that is something that's held so dear to Amazon that if you have something, build it, simplify another process. That's the way things are taken forward. Um, Learn and be curious is another one that's really important. And think big. So you don't have to just stick to what we know. We will come up with a better way of doing things. And I think that's the way Amazon has grown over the years.
Great, thanks.
So, Yusuf, you've been moving around and experiencing adventures, really. What have you found to be the most challenging, and how did you adapt to those challenges?
I think I'm going to embarrass myself, but the culture I came from was pretty much where my wife was doing everything, or the domestic worker at home did everything. And moving on my own was actually quite a challenge to cook and clean and figure out how a washing machine works or how a laundry works and how everything. So that's a challenge. I think I did learn about migrant labor in primary school, and I figure I'm probably fitting into that into that bucket at the moment. But while it's a challenge, it's a good one, and I think in terms of work and in terms of the opportunities and something for me of just constantly wanting to be challenged and constantly learning and on a technical level is something that I think I couldn't have done any other way. Yeah.
I mean, Joseph, one of the things that still keeps me up at night, and Omnicor's come like a really long way in terms of data security, encrypting our database, and just all the regulatory stuff and the penetration tests. I mean, we've really moved solidly in that direction, but I still worry about getting hacked and ransomware and those kind of things. I mean, is that a concern at Amazon at all? Is there any advice you could give us in that area?
It's definitely a concern. I think it's every organization's one of their primary focuses, because everyone kind of gets bots and targeted attacks. It is something that's a reality in the industry. It is a focus of multiple teams, and there's multiple layers at Amazon of trying to prevent that. Mostly also from both from the customer side using the website and the customer facing applications that we have, but also from internally to make sure that we protecting consumer data and protecting sellers data and all of that. It's a core focus with everything we do, and even in releasing software, there's steps in the process that goes through security to get it signed off like that. I think in terms of advice, you're doing the right things. You have to be careful about this, and it is a reality. I think you probably should frame it to say, when are we going to get the next attack, not if we're going to get the next attack, and you prepare for it. You can be proactive, and it probably will never happen. Touch wood, not superstitious, but anyway. It might never happen, but you have to be prepared, because when it does, it could be devastating, because you don't ever want to lose customer confidence. I think that is something that you just have to put in the effort and keep on doing.
Great, thanks.
So, Yusuf, probably an unlikely question from me, but what laptop do you use? What computer do you use? And why?
When I first got to Hunger Station in Saudi, they gave me a MacBook. It was the first time I started using a MacBook. So for that first week or two, I was just trying to figure it out. Couldn't figure out how to delete. You can only backspace. But to figure out how to delete, forward delete. I got that sorted. But eventually, I got so used to it that I'm only using MacBooks now. I requested a MacBook when I came to Amazon. I got my son a MacBook. It's I don't think I'll go back to Windows ever. It's I've been converted or
It sounds like it.
persuaded. Yeah, MacBooks really do quite well. But Amazon has such a large infrastructure with AWS, for example, that you can actually have cloud desktops So for development, you don't really have to do much on your own personal machine. You just connect virtually to a cloud desktop, and that's your development environment, and you can do everything there. So it does simplify things a lot. That your device is just a terminal to get to some backend somewhere.
Just a follow up question around technology and leadership. So, what are the ways in which you are using technology as a leader in your role?
There's so many tools. Everything is online. I think the same thing applies to governments. When I'll get back to technology in my role, but what I was surprised about compared to South Africa is Saudi Arabia, for example, was so online. Everything administrative in the country was run using online services, and the same in Europe here. If you want to do something, you just go onto a particular place, you authenticate yourself, and everyone has the same sort of modes of authentication, and you do everything online, which is fascinating. And I think there's a big opportunity for South Africa to get digital. And they have been doing that with passports, applying online for things like that. And there's room for improvement, sure, but I think there's definitely some opportunity there, and that's definitely the way of the future. Amazon has a very big self-service culture. So a lot of that in the same way is online. So a lot of tools are just available to all staff. Um, a lot of the tools are available for managing staff as well. You would expect the simple things like leave management and HR services to be online, but it goes so much beyond that. That down to everything that you could do with an employee is online. There's like nothing is manual, and it goes to such a large organization of over 1 million people. You can't really be dealing with any manual processes. So there's teams that are really focused on streamlining and optimizing everything from creating meetings. You don't have to do it in Outlook yourself. There's a system that does it across time zones and across people. It'll find available slots for you. And I think it goes to one of Hilton's ideas a few years back around just a booking system across multiple regions. And just related to that, Hilton, I was telling you sometime before that your ideas around a daily dashboard or a daily check-in with all staff around how you're doing, how have the meetings been going, it's just collecting data daily. There's a system for that here as well. So, and it provides the same sort of reporting every week or every month, the health of your team and the health of your organization. And you had that idea years ago, so I think I
Yeah,
did mention that to you before.
you
You're ahead of
did.
your time, Hilton.
Well, I don't know why Amazon took my idea and didn't compensate me in any way, but I'll be working on that as a side project. Yusuf,
Yeah,
just
I think
being
definitely. Yeah.
just being in the coding world for kind of 2 decades that you've been involved in it. What are the new trends that you're kind of seeing in the way people approach work and solve problems and get things done? And just as a learning thing, like what could we learn in terms of our future, in terms of what we should be doing?
I think there's a growing need for people to. I think for people to have the flexibility to work from home. I really think a lot of people have latched onto that in the last while, and they really trying to stay as remote as possible. Amazon is largely an in-office culture, so it'll be difficult to get that right. But in hiring lately, been a lot of requests from people to they just want to sit on the couch or sit in their dining room and continue to work. In terms of how the work is done, that hasn't changed. There's tools that have changed. There'll be different DevOps tools in different organizations that they leverage, but the principle is still the same. The life cycle of software development is largely the same. Um, each organization will have challenges. For example, with thousands of teams, you're really having a lot of meetings and a lot of approvals have to get done by multiple um, at multiple steps. But that life cycle is really the same, and it's quite well defined. It will evolve over time, sure, but at the moment, it kind of follows the same principles it always has.
Is DevOps a thing there?
Yes, with it follows the same patterns that we were trying to implement while I was still at Omnicor. I'm sure it's completely implemented nicely now, but mostly using Amazon in-house built tools. So I think we prefer to just rebuild it using the same sort of principles that are out there, whether it's source code repository or um, a deployment pipeline type tool or anything like that. There's a team that has developed a tool that Amazon uses internally, down to our own. We don't use Zoom or Microsoft Teams. There's an Amazon product that handles our video conferencing as well. So everything's built in house.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yusuf, in your travels again, and currently where you were saying at the beginning of the episode that you're working with so many different cultures, as a leader, how do you manage the cultural diversity issues and, just the different habits that some people have that maybe don't make sense to others? Has it been a challenge?
It has been a challenge. I think South Africa does prepare you for that. We have different cultures in South Africa that we have to also be aware of, and different ways that people work. In the Middle East, it was a very stark contrast between people from Egypt versus people from the Gulf or from Jordan, or those sorts of challenges. Um, and you do have to be prepared for that, and being aware of different sorts of sensibilities of people here as well. My team, if I can give you a rundown, I have someone from India, from Kazakhstan, two from Colombia, a couple from Ukraine, Croatia, Germany, South Africa, the USA, and I might be missing someone. Oh, another from Colombia. Yeah. So it really is a different challenge to Jordan and Egypt, um, dealing with the German process way of doing things, and it is something. There's a book that we've all been encouraged to read. It's called The Culture Map. I don't know if you've seen it. The Culture Map by Erin Meyer is something I encourage you to read. It's really focused on that multicultural way of working, and it does have quite a strong resonance with a very European focus and Asian focus in these markets. So basically, I think when you're on this side of the world, everything is northern hemisphere, and they don't really consider the rest of the world as anything. So I think, but it's a good book if anyone wants to read it. Erin Mayer's The Culture Map, and it does help alleviate these challenges with multiple cultures, and dealing with different ways of working.
So Yusuf, you mentioned an innovations forum. So I'm just picking up something that you said below, and that sounds like it's like a regular forum where everyone gets together and brainstorms ideas or something like that, or you put in a formal innovation and then it gets processed in some kind of way. I mean, tell us more how that works.
Yeah, so what that it is very regular. I think it runs every week. So it's up to you to write a one pager on your idea, and there's a template for it as well. So you answer a few questions on what the customer impact is, or what problem you're trying to solve, and what your idea will do, and how would you even go about um, not building the idea, but how would you go about developing the idea? What would be the overarching things that you would need to get done, and the impact, etc., etc. And then you sign up to one of these innovations forums, and you submit your idea there, and they'll schedule. You'll be included in one of they'll reserve a slot for you in one of the upcoming meetings, and you go. And in the Amazon way, everyone would read your one pager in the first half of the meeting, and then discuss it in the second half of the meeting. And like that, things get taken forward. And many ideas from these forums have become products all the way for customers, and also as internal tools at Amazon. And that's the way things are growing. There's a strong culture of everyone needing to facilitate training. We encourage everyone to run a training course, pick a topic, and you have to just present a training course. And at the same way, we encourage everyone to come up with these ideas and and run with it and see if it goes somewhere good. If it doesn't go anywhere, still good. We still want people to come up with these ideas. It's a strong culture on doing that sort of thing.
Is it incentivized if you come up with something amazing and whatever saves millions?
I don't actually know. That's interesting. I haven't really explored it to that level. Maybe it is, but I think at the end of the day, Amazon has a very public way of remunerating people, and shares form a large part of the remuneration packages at Amazon. So if you are saving money and the company is doing well, you inadvertently making money for yourself through that share price. But it might be incentivized. I actually don't know.
I mean, in terms of the process of making changes. So the way it works here is like, for example, I'll dream up an idea or a client will come up with an idea. We take it to a business analyst. We flesh it out a little bit, and then it goes to our head of IT and eventually to the developers. I mean, what is the process there for someone from the start of someone having an idea to eventually getting it implemented?
Yeah, I think it does have some overlap with the way you're doing it. There's multiple different roles that I wasn't aware of even existed before I came to Amazon. So there's the obvious roles like a software development manager, myself, and a software engineer that would work for me. But then there's roles like a product manager technical. That's different from a normal product manager. They would be basically the business analyst, but a more technical focused role. And then there's another one called a technical program manager, which would work closely with the engineering teams. And then from the business side, you would have the traditional product managers or product owners. Um, these different people would have a stake in the idea, and they would be involved in interrogating and working through this innovation that someone has come up with. And they all have a role to play and a role to actually reach or grow this or incubate this idea. Um, I think that's something specific. I actually don't know whether TPM and PMT are worldwide or just Amazon specific roles. But given all of the different portfolios and responsibilities that these roles have, they all fit together to work as a team that can take any idea forward.
So, Yusuf, you were at Omnicor with a very small team. I mean, I think tops 30. And then you went to Hunger Station and it got much bigger. And now you're in this massive organization. What do you miss about Omnicor and what have the challenges been being in such a huge organization?
I think Omnicor is very special. I think it was a family, so it was a business, and we could compete with anyone at any level. So there was that going for it. That family vibe where you at dinner with the CEO at his family's house, and you at the same time having occasions, every week there's something at the office and celebrated quite nicely. That's something I do miss, that close knit. I think part of the challenge is COVID at the moment, so we haven't really socialized at a personal level with people from the team. We tried to once to go for like a Sunday morning cycle, but so that I think COVID has really put a block on that, where everything is purely online. So we try and introduce virtual coffee and those sorts of things. But that family vibe of Omnicor is something I haven't seen anywhere really. A large organization like this has many levels, and people are friendly everywhere, so that's good. And especially in a very multicultural setting like this, like Luxembourg, where almost everyone is from outside of the country. Everyone's an expat, essentially. So everyone has that in common, and everyone wants to do things and tour together. So there is that, and that does have advantages. But it is a different culture because everyone is not from Luxembourg. that makes it very different. I have to learn some French words now and some German words, and I'm struggling with languages. It's not my strength, let me tell you.
Thanks, Yusuf. We miss you too.
Is the main language English? I mean, does it just default to that for meetings?
Yeah, business is English. I'm writing my dates in the wrong way because it is an American company,
Uh,
and I have to use Z for words like recognize and prioritize. They spell everything wrong. But it is an American company, so everything is English. So whether we're dealing with the office in Madrid or Berlin or anywhere in the world, everything is English, and everyone. I'm actually just English is my mother tongue. I'm so amazed at the level of English that the level of second language English. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
yeah,
Second, does
yeah,
that make sense?
yeah.
The level of second language English from a lot of these expats is amazing. It's like better English. That's my mother tongue. They speak better English, so that is really impressive. I'm struggling to learn as a second language, so I really appreciate that, and I'm fortunate that I don't have to learn another language. Business is English. I think the culture out here in the capital of Luxembourg, which is also called Luxembourg, is uh, is French here in the south of the country. There's German more in the north of the country and to the east, but French is something that I have to pick up on, and then I there is a local language called Luxembourgish, which is kind of like a German dialect, but you might have to edit that out because I'm sure people don't want to know that or they don't want to admit that, but it's like that. So yes, English is the primary language.
I mean, I'm sure that. Well, I don't know, but I would imagine it's a selection criteria that if you don't have conversational English, it would be hard to be part of a team. If you only spoke Mandarin or something, it would be probably a bit of an inhibitor in. I mean, I guess you couldn't even get through your initial interviews.
Yeah, I think that would be a challenge. It is the common business language for everyone. You might find that in some offices, for example, in the Madrid office, that people are. It depends on who's in the room, but people might be
Right.
speaking Spanish. I've joined some meetings where there were people from Brazil only in the meeting at the time, and when I got there, they were all speaking Portuguese, but they switched to English very quickly. But English would be quite a prerequisite for an
Right.
organization like
Yeah.
this.
Okay.
We probably won't say no. I think diversity and inclusivity is something that's drilled into every Amazonian. There's training, compulsory training that we have to attend about being culturally sensitive, being diverse sensitive. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, and inclusive. It is something very important that we make sure we're inclusive no matter what. Yeah.
Okay.
Yusuf, I was interested to understand with your role how much of it is strategic and how much is operational, and how does Amazon work with strategy in the day to day?
I think there is the standard way of having yearly goals and trying to work towards funding those goals. So making sure that you have the resources to meet those goals for the next year. There is that strategically that I have to be aware of as a software development manager, and I would have a TPM with me and a product manager with me to try and achieve those goals. Um, but at the same time, there's also operational level things. We have to, I don't know if we call it keeping the lights on. We have to keep the lights on. So there is an on call every week. One of the engineers would be on call 24/7 for that week. Um, and making sure that if there's any issue, customer facing issue, that it gets immediate attention. There's the normal SLA that we have to respond to certain levels or severities of issues in a certain time frame. And there's definitely an operational component to the work we do because customers are shopping around the clock and we have to just make sure that operationally things are just running. But strategically, we also have these large goals that we want to get to. We want to expand to all the countries in Europe. We want to expand to every marketplace that makes sense um, globally. And those large goals are what's going to take our business forward, while at the same time keeping the lights on is still something we have to stay close to.
Do you use OKRs at all? Have you come across them in the business? Objectives and key results?
In a sense, yes, there would be a slightly different way of doing it, but yes, it would work out to be a flavor of it, an Amazon peculiar flavor of the same thing. Yes. Um, so part of it is we're currently in a process now looking at the objectives or the priorities for the next year, the goals for the next year, and sometimes we might break that up into it might be a multi-year goal, and we might have these milestones that we have to do to get to it. Um, there's an Amazon flavor to it. We made the OKR process our own. Yeah.
I've got a quick question, then a bit of a longer one. The quick one is, like, how often are things going live there? Is it like every day? If I'm an Amazon end user, would I be working on a different version of Amazon today than I did yesterday, or does it go through a specific cycle where everything goes live in the middle of the night on a Sunday or something?
We try and empower the teams to do as much as they can without interference. And what that means is we could be releasing continuously. There are certain constraints that you can't really, for example, the mobile app, you can't really force all the users to upgrade on the mobile app all the time. But elements within the mobile app, you can upgrade continuously for the website. There's no fixed process or fixed date to just do a mass install or a mass upgrade. Um, for the smaller features, things are rolling out all the time. Of course, there are also freezes, code freeze and deployment freezes, where we can't really release things during peak days and those things. That's an industry standard, I suppose. But we let the teams, as things are ready and as things are approved, the process to go live. And there's a strong culture of um, blameless post-mortems. So if there are bugs or if there are issues in production, something would happen and then we fix it, we roll back and we write an incident report and we just get better and better at it. But thousands, tens of thousands of teams, or maybe, I don't know, 10,000 teams, everyone's doing this sort of thing. Everyone's releasing all the time. It's massive. It really is massive.
And then, Yusuf, how much of the changes are driven by customers? So, to what extent is like I'm imagining that of the millions of users all over the world, the end users, that you're getting streams of ideas from people about how to make things better, whatever it is. Does someone go through those and filter them down? How does that work?
I think that's a large part of it. I got a couple of use cases that came from customers um, that have influenced the projects that I'm on. So the project is some of the projects. I can't really go into the details, but it came from a customer um, suggestion slash query. And we took that in, and I think to answer your question directly, probably a lot or most of our innovation comes from most of our new features would come from customer requests. The customer comes first at Amazon. It's something that Jeff Bezos has really drilled in to everyone. And in any meeting room, well, when we're back in a boardroom, the at his level, at executive level as well, they had an empty chair in the room, and the empty chair was for the customer. And part of that is what does the customer need and what does the customer want? So the customers really do come first, and those customer queries are taken very seriously, customer complaints especially, and they do drive innovation in a big way. Many of the projects do come from the customers and what they need.
Well, that's a very systemic approach. I mean, Peter Hawkins, who's my go to guy for coaching in a team, talks about that methodology. It's a Gestalt methodology to have the chair in the room. And I was really excited to ask you about coaching and leadership training and how that have you worked with that yet in your role?
Not yet. I haven't come across that, but there's training platforms here that you can sign up, At the moment, my focus is on calibrating myself for the Amazon way of doing interviews. So I'm doing um, training around making great hiring decisions and software development engineer training. So to calibrate myself towards an Amazon way of doing things. But at the same time, if I tell you, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of training courses are just available just all the time. You go to this platform and you drown in the amount of training courses that are available to us. So I've signed up for the interview ones at the moment. I haven't come across specific one-on-one coaching, but I'm sure it's available somewhere. It must be. Yeah.
So while you're on the good hire journey, I mean, are you able to distill, like for you, what you would be? I mean, I know there's all the different interviews and whatever the kind of 14 leadership components, but for you, when you're doing an interview, what are you focused on in terms of making a good hiring decision?
I think the structure of the interview does help, um, like the selection blueprint structure.
Mm, mm.
So there's a bank of questions related to these 14 leadership principles, borrowing from Omnicor's way. I don't know which came first, chicken or egg. Borrowing from Omnicor's way of the bank of questions around the competencies around the role follows exactly the same thing. If the leadership principle is think big, then there's 1,000 questions that you can use, and you use that question and you interrogate. I think something for me is from the selection blueprint training and still relevant um, is being able to calibrate against that particular competency and honing down to just try and interrogate that one competency with that question. And at the end of the day, to try and see once you have a read of the candidate, when you have all of the results, you want to see that the candidate is better than 50% of the current people in the role. So that's important for me. If you're going to make a hire, you really want this candidate to raise the bar and be better than the current people in the role. So if you know the people that are in your role, for example, if I'm hiring an engineer, I have a strong handle on my team. And if I'm going to choose another engineer, that new person needs to come in and be near the top of the range of where my engineers are. So that's a good way of assessing and checking that this person is raising the bar for your organization. Yeah.
So, Yusuf, on a technical note, what's it like for you as an Amazon employee to engage with the AWS team versus, say, someone like an Omnicor person engaging? Do you get a better experience, a better interface? Is there anything different?
There's multiple internal tools, and I think they've abstracted it for us a bit. There's a team that's responsible for Amazon, for like AWS infrastructure that's used for internal teams. So we have a team that interfaces for us directly. They've provided containers for us to host our own infrastructure, etc. So we don't have to deal with that directly. And in the self-service model, we enabled to just we empowered to go in and do what we want and get what we need. Of course, there's an approval process that managers would need to approve new infrastructure and all of that. But it's quite a strong online self-service type culture.
So Yusuf, is there like a time in the year or multiple times in the year where they evaluate your performance and you get a view of like, how am I doing? Some performance management process.
Yes, again, based on the leadership principles. Twice a year, there's a check-in once a year, and then a more formal one the second time in the year. And there's also feedback from colleagues in the 360 way, again, borrowed from Omnicor's 360 process, on getting feedback from peers and getting feedback from stakeholders or customers and from your manager, and then your self evaluation as well. I mean, 360 is not a new concept, but Amazon borrowed it from Omnicor, I'm sure. Definitely helps. So there is that twice a year check in. And then we would take those results and it would feed into some sort of rating system, and we would be able to.
Maybe just a wrap up question as we head to the end of the episode. I can't believe it's been an hour. Um, if you were to come back to Omnicor today, what would you do differently in the space that you were in? What would you change or suggest?
I think I've really become sold on the microservice way of doing things. Rolford, for example, was reaching quite a monolith designed architecture. It was one big system that we would need to maintain. Amazon runs completely opposite. Everything is a small service of its own. For example, in Rollfit, just managing a candidate or a candidate and a candidate's attributes and things to do with just a specific candidate, biographical details, for example, that will essentially be a system and a service of its own, separated out, maintained by a team, and just completely independent of the rest of the system. There would be a system that manages reports, and that would be another completely separate service, and a separate team would be running that, and it would have its own infrastructure, etc. So the whole microservice approach to software projects is something that really has its advantages. It is more expensive. It is more onerous. It does need larger teams and more resources to be able to focus on different components all at the same time. So that is something that I would do differently. Is that microservice approach to software development?
What is the advantage?
Yeah, what you're able to do is if there's a team that's focused primarily on just the candidate, for example, let's take that idea, candidate and biographical information. That team would really advance that component to such an extent that it wouldn't really get the attention if it was part of the larger monolith. Where we, as a development team, you focused on reports maybe, or you focused on a certain piece of the front end. But if the team's sole focus was just to do with biographical details, they would really evolve that piece to where we would never get to it on its own. And the same goes for any other component. If a team was only focused on report generation, they would really only need to worry about that. They wouldn't be distracted with other parts of the product, and you would end up with a richer product where each component has a lot more features and usability. Um, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it works if you're starting from scratch. It might be a difficult philosophy to implement if you have what I think you once called the beer myth or something, where we built this like giant machine to do everything, and
Exactly. I
it's
think it
hard to
is.
kind of
It,
split it.
it yeah, it is a challenge to move away from the monolith or the behemoth.
Yeah.
Is definitely a challenge, and that was something we were doing as a team in Hunger Station in Saudi Arabia. That was something we were doing. We were separating out into microservices, and it is a lot of work. But you have to identify a component that is almost standalone, whether it's like the billing part of the application, and make a team, call them billing, tell them this is your mandate, this is what you have to do, take that piece out or rebuild it, whatever it is. It's a lot more work when you're moving away from the monolith, but it is doable. It is something that is possible, and of course, it's going to introduce errors and challenges that you didn't think of before. But in the long run, it might get you. It'll let you evolve quicker
Right. Right.
after 2 years or 3 years of that investment. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Yusuf, it was really wonderful catching up. And I think obviously Amazon's recruitment practices work really well because they employed such a talented individual. And we just wish you everything of the best in the future. And we hope that when you come and visit in South Africa, we'll be able to connect up and yeah, stay in touch.
definitely, Colleen, you're too kind. I think this Corona has really been a challenge. I haven't traveled to South Africa for about 18 months now. It's just been too difficult to travel. I was lucky to actually even get to Luxembourg. Flights were blocked, and
Wow.
it's just such a mission to get here. But yeah, I plan to come there soon,
Mm.
hopefully, and at least in the next few months. And I'll definitely be at Omnicor saying hello in person.
Great.
Thanks, Yusuf. It was extraordinary great just to catch up with you and just to share. Really, it was great wisdom with us. I think this was a very, very informative session.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Hilton.
you so
It's
much.
very formal, but
So
I'm
just
trying to be formal and not use slang words. Yeah.
thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. We really hope you enjoyed the episode. It would help us a lot if you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars if possible, and check out our website www.omnicor.co.za. You'll find our previous episodes and other blogs and helpful resources. And we look forward to connecting in the next episode.